They see A's, they say goals. I'm the chemist they trying to be. Look, I might just chill with Bertozzi. I might just chill with TAs. I might just chill on your leg. My chemistry grade is okay. They want to get with this 8. I'm like, okay. I let them get what they want. They want to join my little squad in the group chat. Brennan responds to us. She said that she's down with our squad. I'm the smartest in the street. No, you probably heard of me. Got a skill coach, fix my grade. Hope you girls know it ain't easy. And I'm going to medical school. I ain't got no time to chill. Think these people mad at me. They grades really ain't hard as me. Hey guys, if this is your first time on my channel, you are welcome. Just hit that subscribe button while you're here. If you're a returning watcher, what's up? You've probably seen this video before, but just bear with me. I'm gonna do it again. So I was looking through my old videos from like 3 years ago, and I had saw that I made a How I Got Into Stanford video, and I was like, it'd be so funny, or it'd be cool if I made a How I Got to Stanford 2.0, because now that I'm about to graduate, I think I have a similar but different perspective, and I think it'd just be cool to remake the video. So I was like, who gonna stop me? So today I'm gonna be talking about how I got into Stanford, or things that I think played a role into me getting into Stanford. If you already watched that first video, it's gonna probably be a repeat with the occasional shady comment. I might add a thing or two, I might take out a thing or two. I don't know, you're just gonna have to finish watching this video to find out. So let's get into the video. Okay, so I want to start off, I think I already mentioned this in another video, but I'm going to start off by telling you guys my reaction when I got into Stanford. So I applied to Williams College, Harvard, and Stanford University. And the rest of the schools I applied to were in Massachusetts. They were schools that I figured I was going to get into, so I wasn't too like pressed about them. And your girl got rejected from Williams and Harvard. Their loss, honestly. And I had gotten rejected before I heard back from Stanford, so I figured I was gonna get rejected from Stanford, because I'm like, if these two schools just said no to me, I'm pretty sure Stanford's gonna be along the same lines. So I didn't have any high expectations for Stanford, and I knew the email was gonna be released when I got back from school. So I was on my phone, and then like the email notification pops up, and I'm like, I don't want to look at this, but I know I'm going to, so let me just click. I click it, and I was like, oh my God. I said, thank you, baby Jesus, I got in. I was like, it's lit. And I think I was so much more happy and so much more excited because I actually expected to not get in, and I had been so disappointed by Williams and Harvard. I was just like, let me just open this email just to say, okay, I officially got rejected. So I was super excited, and my dad was at the little computer thing, so I ran, I'm like, oh my goodness, daddy, 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 guess what? He's like, what is it? I said, I got into Stanford. And he was like, and so? I was like, bruh. Are you really gonna play me like that right now? I just told you I got into one of the best schools in the world, and you were like, and so? Wow. And I'm gonna be honest, my parents weren't so hot about me moving across the country, so I think that's why they were kind of just like iffy about Stanford. But at the end of the day, they were cool with it, because you know, money talks. So they figured the cheapest school for me to go to was Stanford. So I ended up going, clearly. And now that I'm done with the theatrics, I'm going to tell you guys some things I did in high school and some things I think I could have done better, and why I think I got rejected from Harvard too. So I went to a very small charter school. The time I was graduating, we had a graduating class of like 25 seniors, really small school, middle and high school, and I figured in my head that was like kind of one strike against me, because there was only one other person that had applied to Stanford and got in from my school before me. And like, my school was so small, I was like, do colleges even know this school exists? So I was kind of worried about that. But I also think because that one person before me had applied to Stanford and got in, that kind of that paved the way for me, because now at least Stanford, if not the other schools, knew Boston Prep, and they knew that, okay, it's a small school. They don't offer the most classes, which takes me to my next point of the classes I took. I took the general stuff that they have you take when it comes to APs. My school did not offer a lot of APs, so I only ended up taking AP US History, AP Biology, AP Calculus, and AP Psychology. Thinking about it now, wish my school offered like honors chemistry or AP chemistry. I probably would have taken that, but those were the only AP stuff I did. And I had gotten a 3 on AP Psych exam. I got a 4 on the AP Bio exam. I think I got a 3 on the AP History exam, but I kind of knew, like, who really likes AP US History? Who likes A Push? Like, so I know I was going to get a 3 on that, and I got a 5 on the AP Calc, and I took AP Calc AB. And you know how they always tell you, oh, make sure you do on your AP classes, do on the AP exam, because that counts for credit in colleges. Let me tell y'all, Stanford only took one AP course I did, and that was AP Calc, and that was only because I got a 5. Everything else didn't help, wasn't useful, didn't get me any credit. AP Calc, though, the 5 I got me 10 units towards my undergrad career. So I was like, okay, it's lit. Your girl don't gotta take calc. The idea was I took all the AP classes my school offered. I like maxed out what I could at that school. Given the environment I was in, I did what I could. Versus like if my school had offered like maybe 10 APs, and over my 4 years I only took like 2 of those AP classes, that might have looked a bit like funky to college admissions, because it's like you had an opportunity to take more AP classes and you didn't. So I think because I took the 4 out of 4 AP classes that were offered, that was one strike to my benefit, or for my benefit, or one strike for me, rather than against me. In regards to my grades, I was an A student. All I got was A's. All I knew was A's. What is a B? B is for basic. And that wasn't me. I'm not basic, so I didn't get a B. And I think in the context of my school, I did as best as I could. I was valedictorian. I was the top of my class. So doing well to me was very important, especially because I went to a smaller school. And in my opinion, I didn't go to the most competitive or rigorous school. So I think it was even more important that I was doing well in the school I was in. I think if I had maybe went to like a private school or a harder school, maybe I could have gone away with a couple B's or something. But I think given that, to me, my school wasn't as rigorous, it was important that I actually do well. So that was that. And I think in the other video I posted my transcript. Here I'm not going to do that because I feel like that's not helpful to Stanford hopefuls, and I don't think that's productive for anyone looking at one person's transcript. Like, looking at my transcript is not going to help you in, I think, your application process, because everyone is different and they look at everyone differently, and I think the expectations of me are different than what the expectations of you are going to be. So I'm not going to post my GPA, my transcript here, but just I did get all A's. My GPA was on a scale of 100, and I was in the 90 range, so we thank God for that. In regards to my SAT scores, oh my goodness, y'all, I am so old, because now apparently they changed the SAT. It's out of like 1600 now, and when back in the day when I was applying to college, it was out of 2400. And at the time, my SAT scores, super scored. I don't even know if they still do super score. And basically, super score is where they take your highest score from each section. Like, let's say I take the SAT 3 times. They'll take the highest score for each section of those 3 times, and that's what they'll consider my SAT score. And super scored, I got like an 1880 or 1850, and I'm pretty sure that was below the range that of SAT scores that Stanford accepts. And all through applying to college, and this is not just for Stanford, but all of the colleges, I was worried about my SAT scores because they were relatively low. And my guidance counselor had told me, he said, if there's one part of your application you're really worried about, you need to make every other part of your application so much more stronger, so that way, like, not to say that your SAT score won't matter, but it makes it harder to say no to you, because everything else about your application is so phenomenal. And I took that advice to heart. I was like, bet, I need to make sure my essays are popping. At some point, you can't really change your extracurricular activities, but it was like, I need to make sure I packaged myself really well in every other aspect, and I needed to make sure I was asking recommendations from people that liked me, which I feel like it's kind of hard to not like me, but just making sure I asked teachers that truly liked me, that actually was like my homie. So I did that. So okay, so I've talked about what grades, AP scores, SAT scores. The next thing is extracurricular activities. Well, first of all, my parents didn't like me going out that much, so I feel like for me, varsity sports probably wasn't an option, partially because I don't like exercising and I didn't like being active, so that wasn't an option. But then also, like, game practices and late games, my parents probably wouldn't have allowed me to do that, so varsity sports weren't an option for me. But I did do other stuff. I recognized and realized that my strength was in academics, so a lot of my extracurricular activities were revolving that. Like, I was in SEED, which is an MIT program. Basically, it's like for all years of high school. And basically, you go to MIT on Saturdays and you take different classes. You take classes in like civil engineering, electrical engineering, computer science, and like it's a very STEMmy program. And I did that for all of my high school. So that was like a long-term extracurricular activity. And like, I think to admission to show that I was going beyond my school classroom to like increase my intellectual vitality. And I was doing stuff outside of school to learn. And like, my school didn't offer like engineering and stuff like that, so I think it was really cool that I was getting that exposure experience somewhere else, and I think that stood out to admission officers. And I will say it's only for Massachusetts residents, I believe, the SEED. And so if you live in Massachusetts, check it out if you're a sophomore or a freshman in high school. And then during my junior summer, I did E2, which is the engineering experience at MIT. And I think the reason I did that was because I was already doing SEED. So in a sense, it was kind of like the people who run that program kind of already knew me, and like I had already this track record of like I go to the programs. So I got into that one. I didn't get into MITES, which is a longer one. That one is like, I think 6 weeks, and the E2 is 2 weeks. So I did E2, and basically I think you get to pick what class you want to focus on in those 2 weeks. And I think I did electronics, and what did we make? I forget what my group made, but we made something pretty cool. And like, I thoroughly enjoyed that program because like I met one of my best friends there. I met one of my best friends there, and my other best friend, we like did the program together. So it was really fun. And I think that also stood out of like, I was being proactive or being productive during my summers, which is another thing. I think definitely 5 things to do during the summer. Like, even if you feel like it doesn't count for something, do it. Like, if it's like a 1-week academic program, or if you work during the summer as like a camp counselor or something, or if you're volunteering, like make sure you're doing something during the summer, doing something to show that you're either increasing your intellectual vitality or that you're doing something to help the world, honestly. I will say another thing is I did mock trial. I did it only my senior year, but that's because we started it my senior year. So I did that, and I believe I was co-captain of mock trial. And that was fun. That was something really cool, I think, that stood out. I also worked, I think like since my sophomore year to my senior year, I worked part-time just because I needed the extra money and I didn't want to burden my parents. And I think that stood out in the sense of like, I was able to go to school for 8 hours a day, get A's, do well, while working after school. And I think that shows work ethic, it shows dedication, it shows that you're able to balance your time and manage your time. The fact that I was working and I still was doing well in school, I think that stood out in my application. Like, she's able to manage her time well, and she's able to do different things, do different extracurricular activities while maintaining a high grades. And I think that's important because in college, so much stuff is going to be thrown your way. You're going to like want to join all these clubs. There's going to be all this stuff to do plus school. And I think colleges want to be able to know that you can deal with social stuff, extracurricular stuff, and still manage your academics, which is why you're coming to college. So I think that stood out, the fact that I was so proactive. I was doing like so much, and at the time I thought like I wasn't doing enough. I was like, I have no volunteer experience. I've never volunteered at a hospital. I've never done any community service. I haven't done anything like that, and I was so worried that like I didn't have like 500 hours of community service. So I thought that was gonna like work against me. But I think at the end of the day, you want to show that you're doing stuff that is productive to you or in some way is good. And I think a lot of people tend to be like, oh, I need to get this amount of community service hours. There are people who have over 500 hours of community service throughout their 4 years and still didn't get into the schools they wanted to. So that's just to show you that like it's not just, oh, one part of your application, or like they're looking at how many numbers of community service this person does, because I didn't do any community service and I still got into Stanford. So I think it's important to recognize, to do stuff that you love. And at the time I loved STEM, I loved engineering, so I was doing stuff that like was relevant to that. And I love arguing with people. I love like making points and stuff, and mock trial was fun to me, and that was something I loved doing. And my after school job wasn't just a random job. I worked at a after school program in a community center, and that's because I love kids. I love working with kids. I love dealing with kids. Sometimes it can be a handful, but that was something I loved doing, and I did it. I worked like 2 or 3 hours every night, sometimes on Saturdays, and that was something I loved to do. And I continued that job throughout the summer. So I think 2 summers I worked at the community center, and then 1 summer I did the engineering thing. Essay, okay, y'all, and for me personally, I think the most important part of your application is your essay. And it is so important to be yourself. This sounds so cliche, but it's so important to be yourself in your essays, just because that is the only part of your application where you have a voice. I feel like your grades, you know, you can't change your grades. You can't change the extracurricular activities you've done or you haven't done. You don't have any control over what recommenders are going to say, but you have all the control in the essay. So I feel like it's the most powerful part of your application. For me, that was the part where I was like, I'm gonna show you who I am. At the time I was in high school, we had 3 different college counselors, and I had 1 assigned college counselor, but you know, kind of sometimes would go to others and stuff. Like we're a pretty small school, so like everyone knew everyone. And I had decided to write about weave, hair extensions, virgin hair, whatever you want to call it. I decided to write about that. And I'm pretty sure some teachers looked at me sideways and wasn't sure that was the smartest idea or best thing to write about, because it's kind of like, some people might call it ghetto, or some people might call it ratchet, or like, why would you write about hair extensions? But to me it was important, and I feel like that's a part of who I am, and I felt like I wouldn't be doing myself justice if I didn't write about it. And I wrote about it. I talked about how I started wearing weave in high school, and how I kind of used weave as a way to make myself feel better about my self-esteem, my self-image. And at the end of the essay, I weave that into how self-confidence is important to me, and uplifting other women of color is important to me, and making people feel beautiful, that's important to me. And I talked about how that experience with like getting to know myself and my self-image played a role in what I want to do in the future. And I remember this so clearly. In my college essay, I said at the end of it, I want to be a child and adolescent psychiatrist. And the crazy thing is, like, that hasn't changed till today. I still strongly feel that way. And I think a thing that played a role in me getting in was that it was obvious in my essay how convicted I was about what I wanted to do with my life, and where I saw myself making a difference in my community. And I think that's what they look for. They look for you being yourself, showing what you want to, how you're going to contribute to a college campus, showing what you want to do to help your community or help the world. I think those are important things. And at the end of the day, you're kind of selling yourself. And I feel like if you sell a false image of yourself, you're not being truthful. And for me, it was so important that I sold a truthful image of myself. I like weave. I am someone that, like, you know, I pat my weave, and like that was at the time a really big part of me, and I was like, this has to be shown in my application. And it sounds so weird, you guys. It sounds like, why would hair be so important to you? But it was because it gave them an insight to who I really was. And it's so important to be serious and write and right, as yourself and be yourself, because if you do get accepted, that means the school is accepting you for who you are. And the way I interpret my rejections from Williams and Harvard was that they weren't ready for all of this. They were not. And like, whether they didn't appreciate it, whether there wasn't space, for whatever reason, I didn't fit into what they were looking for. And I think at the time it hurt, but looking back, I think everything happens for a reason. And I think it's a good thing I didn't go to Harvard, because I think the kind of personality I have, the kind of person I have, probably wouldn't have thrived, or I wouldn't have reached my potential at Harvard or Williams. So it's important to be yourself, because that way, if you get rejected from a school, you know that you put your all on the table, you put who you were. If you try to paint this picture of yourself that you're not, and you get rejected from a school, you'll never know if you got rejected because you weren't being your authentic self. So I think it's so important. The essay is so important, and like, I think it was my essay that did it, that was the like for me, the it factor. And I've been reading some of y'all comments. I was reading the comments on some of my old videos, and some people talking about, oh, it's because I'm black, that's why I got in, affirmative action, oh, all this stuff. Listen, first of all, blocked. You have been blocked, so you're not even watching this. But I don't understand how you can hate from outside Stanford and you can't even get in. Damn! I'm just saying, because it's usually the people that got rejected that are being salty on my videos, but none of my business. None of my business. Second of all, don't bring that on my channel. Don't ever bring that on my channel. I strongly believe I got into Stanford because of who I am. I got into Stanford because I was smart, because I was a nerd, because I like weave, because I did all this extracurricular stuff, because I was passionate about something, because I was myself. That's why I got into Stanford, because there's a ton of black people that get rejected from Stanford. And let me tell you, more white people get into Stanford than black people. So I strongly feel like you're downplaying all the work I did, all the effort I put into my application, when people make comments like, oh, affirmative action got her in. And I just want everyone to know that whether you're applying to Stanford or applying to some other school or whatever the case is, be yourself, be your true self, put your all on the table, show them who you are, where you want to be, how the school fits into that. And at the end of the day, like, let that speak for itself, and you will get into the schools you're meant to get into. And rejection is a part of life, and if you don't get into the school you really want to go to, understand that everything happens for a reason. And maybe you're not a good fit for that school. Maybe you felt like you were a good fit for the school, but you weren't, and you never know where you're gonna be. Like, you might be happier at some other school. So it's really important to be yourself. You have to know the school you're applying to. I think my personality like fits in with what Stanford is, and Stanford is very liberal, bubbly, very just out there, I think, wacky school, right? And that's me. I am Stanford, literally. Like, I'm silly, I don't take myself seriously, I still yearn for this intellectual vitality, I'm still like all about school, but at the same time I know how to have fun. I think it showed in my application. If you guys have any questions about how I got in or want to know anything more in detail, feel free to ask anonymously to my Ask FM. I'm going to put it in the description box, and I'll also put it in the comment section. If you have any questions personally or want to talk to me about my experience, feel free to Instagram DM me. Honestly, the best way to like actually get a hold of me or get me to respond is through Instagram DMs, rather than Facebook or Twitter or Snapchat. So holla at your girl. If you got questions, I'm here for you. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.